There is a saying, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." I believe it to be true. In my life, I have always tried to act honestly, guided by the golden rule. Treat people the way you want them to treat you. That's my motto that I live by, and I try to do my best to live up to it. So why is living the good life so damn hard? I've never cheated anyone in my life, and I've certainly never said a bad word to anyone either. If someone is wrong that I don't agree with, I give them my reasoning and facts in a polite and accessible manner. When I am wrong, it has never been a problem for me to admit I am wrong. In other words, when I have a problem in front of me, I act honestly and do the right thing. So I was just living my life, not paying attention to any warning signs, when what happened. And it was a life-changing event. I had just returned home from a 2-day conference in Texas when my wife caught me off guard. When I walked into the house, Casey, the aforementioned wife, and our kids were sitting at the kitchen table. The atmosphere was like a holiday party. They were all laughing and joking. When I asked, "What's so funny here?" their moods changed. Casey said to me, nodding to a vacant chair, "Billy, why don't you sit down?" Not actually asking, but doing so in a sort of commanding manner. Not suspecting anything wrong, I sat down and she waved a bundle of papers in front of my nose. "Billy, take these and read them," she pointed demandingly, slapping them on the table in front of me. "I'm not asking for anything but a house. One more thing. There, among the other papers, are also adoption papers. I want Jeff to adopt the kids. I know you want what's best for them, so just sign it and we can move on." Casey gave her apparently pre-rehearsed speech, looking as cold as a pickle. My wife, with whom we had been together for 12 years, had just served me with divorce papers and at the same time adoption forms for my 3 children. My son Devin looked at me with a slight smirk on his face. Devin was 10 years old. Joy, my daughter, didn't even bother to look at me. She was 9 and too busy listening to her iPod to care in the slightest about losing her father. Patrick, my 7-year-old son, was the only one who had anything to say. "Dad, Jeff has a huge house and we all love it," Patrick explained his joy, as if that was supposed to make things so much better. I just sat there and looked at Casey and the kids like they were, hell, they all just lost their minds. Maybe it's the effects of PMS or early menopause, I thought. Or maybe the bitch has bipolar disorder. Shit, she must be stoned or high. Nah, I don't smell alcohol on her. Then where's all this divorce crap coming from? Seeing that I wasn't responding, Casey shrugged and gathered the papers from the table and tossed them on the counter. In their place, she placed a check in front of me for half the money in our bank accounts. "Okay, you'll have more time to read the papers later. Here's your check, Billy, and don't forget it. Kids, get up and take your father's bags to his car," Casey demanded, clapping her hands vigorously to get them out of their seats. "I can't believe this, damn it! They packed up all my stuff before I even got home and then ambushed me before suddenly attacking me and shooting me point blank with a large caliber weapon." "Casey, do you seriously think I'm going anywhere?" I finally asked her in a slightly threatening tone. "Yes, Bill, you're moving out. Weren't you listening?" Casey answered me, annoyed and like reprimanding a naughty child. "Casey, this is actually my family's house. My parents let me live here long before we were married, and I don't remember your name being on any of the deeds to this house," I said, raising my voice as I reminded her of something she seemed to have forgotten. "Yeah, I don't know what the hell happened to make you want a divorce, but you're never taking my parents' house. So you can go on your own, but I'm staying here, okay?" "I couldn't take it anymore," I shouted. Casey rolled her eyes and, realizing she couldn't win this argument, changed her orders and yelled at the kids to pack their things. They would have to change their plans and go home to Jeff, she proclaimed toward the hallway. "Casey, who the hell is this asshole from the mountain, Jeff?" Now I had a chance to ask. "Billy, are you retarded?" Casey gritted her teeth, her growing irritation turning to undisguised contempt. "Jeff is the man who used to fuck the shit out of me while your stupid ass was at work every day," Casey said, with a sadistic pleasure and a smirk. She didn't seem to feel guilty or remorseful at all. There was nothing on her face but an expression of disrespect and contempt for me. I looked at my children, who had reappeared in the kitchen for their support. My daughter only yelled at her brothers to hurry up and then turned to me. "Dad," Joy said, "Jeff can give us a better life. Besides, Mom loves him, and so do we. My sons nodded vigorously in agreement with their sister. I stood up, rubbed Casey's shoulder carelessly as I left the kitchen, and then walked to the door and swung it open. They all picked up their bags and headed for Casey's car. "Casey, don't you fucking touch that car!" I shouted after the group as I stepped out onto the porch. "I'm paying for it, and it's in my name. Get out of here with your little rats. Call your asshole and tell him to pick up all you miserable bastards." Casey and the kids looked back at me, all of them, my former family, smirking, flipping me the bird. As I slammed the door shut, I was furious. I worked my ass off for this family, and they left me for some asshole with money. Well, to blow off steam, I did what any normal guy would do in that situation. Yeah, bro, you guessed it. I got drunk, heroically wiping out the house's liquor supply. I ended up passed out face down on the tile next to the washing machine. For the first time in my life, I hated someone. Of course, first of all, I hated that asshole named Jeff. But even more than that, I was angry and disgusted with my apparently now ex-family. I realized it wasn't just about the rich bastard. My so-called family had decided to betray me. The next morning, as soon as I sobered up, I cleaned myself up and then went online and, after surfing around a bit, found a lawyer. I set up an appointment with him at noon the next day. Since they admitted to adoring this Jeff guy so much, I figured I'd give them what they asked for. My attorney went over the agreement my wife left yesterday and advised me to sign it before Casey changed her mind. Oh, okay. I put my scribbles in all the right places, and the lawyer sent the papers back. Casey was apparently so enamored with her rich Pinocchio that she didn't even demand any alimony from me. In the blink of an eye, with the stroke of a pen, I no longer had a wife or children. My ex-family just threw me away like a stale crust of bread. So much for all that blah, blah, blah about staying together until the kids grow up and move away from home. Or empty dreams about growing old together. Fuck all those silly and ridiculous fantasies. 6 months later, the divorce was final. As they say, things change with time, and I was different too. What I did was dive headfirst into my work. I went back to college and got my master's degree and then my doctorate. I now went by the name Dr. William Capps, which came with a solid addendum of PhD in accounting. I know that most people think accounting is a pretty boring subject, but on the other hand, that's pretty much what my life has been like, except for what my ex-family did to me. Anyway, accounting was my style, something I really enjoyed doing. After acquiring my doctorate, I decided to open my own office. My strategy was high-quality service that provided personalized attention to affluent upper-middle-class clients. Gradually, through complimentary word of mouth, my client base began to grow. By the end of the second year of my practice, I had made quite a fortune. I also met a very nice lady named Patty. She had everything I was looking for in a woman. She was a hard worker, she had the same tastes as me, and she liked to do housework. Patty was a little taller than Casey, and she had seductive curves and roundness in all the right places. By the end of my 4th year in business, my firm had grown to the point where we needed a place to expand our office. Rather than continue to rent space from someone else, I calculated the future benefits and bought a 5-story freestanding office building. Patty and I loved our new in-house headquarters so much that we even had our wedding on the 4th floor. It was a small but festive event for the two of us and the few guests we invited to our little celebration. We must have had too much fun at our wedding and the night afterward, because a few months later, Patty found herself pregnant. I certainly would have loved to spend more time alone with my wife, but sometimes we have to make peace with what life throws at us. Soon it was going to be the 3 of us, and over the past 6+ years, my life had really been on a steady upward trajectory. Needless to say, I was surprised. No, amazed. When one day I was handed double alimony papers. Casey, who suddenly resurfaced from oblivion, demanded that I pay $3,000 a month in child support, and at the same time she demanded that I pay another $432,000. Apparently that's the lost profits that bitch calculated for all the time that she had been warming her sides with her fat roach. What's his name? Jeff. I couldn't help but laugh at this news. Geez, I haven't seen or heard anything about this mercantile gang in 7 whole years, and the first thing they want is money. When I gave the papers to my lawyer, he looked them over, and after he finished laughing, picked up the phone and contacted Casey's lawyer. From what he had heard from his colleague, Casey was broke and alone by this point, but she had heard rumors that I had become a very successful, financially secure, owner of a thriving business. Such news, on the one hand, hurt her ego, and on the other hand, incredibly ignited her inherent greedy instincts. To her great disappointment, she also learned that I had married a second time, and that my wife and I already had a child, and another on the way. Casey's husband, the same moneybags Jeff, was fine with having Casey in every way he knew how, but he wasn't thrilled with family life with 3 cranky ogloids, so one day he just disappeared without leaving any trace. A week later, Casey was served with divorce papers. Naturally, the free-spirited lover refused to pay child support. To do so, he found some clever asshole way to get the adoption invalidated. Jeff convinced the judge that Casey had forced him to draw up the papers, giving him an ultimatum. Either he signed the adoption papers, or he would lose everything he had gained through hard work. That's why he supposedly had to put his signature on the papers. Now that their marriage was officially consummated, and all the money the chicken and her chickens had wasted, it looked like I was Casey's next target. The ex-wife's tactic was to get my parents involved. As it turned out later, she had kept in touch with them since she left me. On the one hand, my parents were understandable. They wanted to remain a part of their grandchildren's lives. On the other hand, my mother and father had never said a word to me about the fact that they had kept in touch with this otter all this time. This was an unpleasant revelation for me. Casey skillfully played the part of the broken wife who made a stupid mistake. My parents took the bait like 2 starving piranhas that had swallowed hook, line, and sinker in one fell swoop. Simply put, they were totally on her side. My father came to me first. He talked to me about forgiveness and doing the right thing in life, about how if he were in my shoes, he would definitely try to find a way to rebuild the family. Somewhere in the middle of his lectures, I pointed out the fact that I now have a different family and a new favorite wife. At the same time, I tried to remind him how Casey and the kids had traitorously abandoned me. As if not hearing my arguments, my father advised me to be a man, pull myself together, and fix my marriage to Casey. "Patty will be fine. She can start over," he ranted complacently. "You'll just have to take care of the kids and pay child support." I looked at my father like he was crazy. For the first time in my life, I lost respect for the older caps. However, that didn't stop me from personally walking to the door, opening it, and politely asking my dad to get out. My mom showed up next. She entered the house with big guns in her hands. Mom firmly voiced a condition to me. If I didn't take Casey back, I had to move out of the house so they could give him to her and their beloved grandchildren. I couldn't believe my ears or my eyes that these were my parents. My firm was doing great, so I just went out and bought my own house. A week after I had to listen to my parents, I received an eviction notice that graciously gave me a month to pack up and move out. And I didn't mind, since the sale of my new home was closing the day after I received the notice. Surprisingly, when you pay cash, people are willing to go out of their way to make things happen as quickly as possible. My parents arrived at their old house again a week later, only to find it empty. Casey and her spinsters moved in the next day. 2 years have passed since then, and in that time I have never spoken to my parents, Casey, or her children. Patty and I were doing great. We had 4 kids running and crawling around our new house, and our business was doing just fine. This year I was named Businessman of the Year in our area. A very beautiful picture of me and my smiling family appeared in the local newspaper. I proudly accepted the award and in my acceptance speech gave much of the credit for winning it to my embarrassed wife. "Without my wife, Patty," I said to the many spectators and guests of the gala dinner, "there would have been no award for me. My wife is my rock." While I was making my speech, my dear dad and mom, along with Casey, suddenly rushed into the hall. My ex-wife determinedly made her way straight to the stage, where she called me a loser father. Playing the victim, with crocodile tears in her eyes, she told the crowd that I had shamelessly and cruelly abandoned my children and herself. Casey ended her accusatory speech with a tragic cry that it was Patty who had ruined her marriage. I think my lawyer must have prepared for this scandal in advance. Somehow he had a hunch that Casey would take the opportunity to damage my reputation and publicize her false story. The lawyer took a remote control out of his pocket and pointed it at the projector at the end of the room. As you know, private investigators can be quite resourceful in gathering dirt on various scumbags, and what advanced technology they utilize in doing so. It's truly amazing. On the empty wall of the hall, to which the eyes of all present immediately turned, began to show a recording of a conversation between Casey and her lawyer, which took place in the parking lot in front of his office. The two men were discussing ways in which she intended to undo the adoption papers I had signed long ago, at her request. Casey had promised her lawyer that if he could get the court to annul the papers, the sex she'd given him this afternoon would be nothing compared to the sex he'd get from her when the papers were thrown in the trash. Then they discussed how to get Patty drugged and raped. Subsequently, they were going to send me a video so I could see proof that Patty was cheating on me, after which Casey would appear on the scene with his comfort and sympathy and take my heart back. That's the plan they cooked up. Finally, she also told her lawyer accomplice how she manipulated my parents into being her puppets, or they wouldn't be able to see their grandchildren. When the short video ended, Casey's lawyer tried the slippery eel method of disappearing out the side door. Good thing his advance was stopped by the police chief's powerful biceps. Several of the judges, also in the audience, seemed to take some interest in the incriminating tape. I cast a long look at the snickering father and mother, then walked over to my wife and children, helped them into their coats, and we left. Outside, I kissed Patty, and we all headed to the car. Just as I finished putting the kids in the back seat, my parents called out to me. Without looking back at them, I took my driver's seat, slammed the door shut, and drove my family home. I never saw them again until I was subpoenaed to testify against Casey and her attorney. When I was done with the formalities and walked out of the courtroom, my father was waiting for me outside. "Billy, I can't tell you how sorry Mom and I are," he began in an apologetic voice. "But please, son, give us a chance to try and make things right. You have 3 children who miss you and are suffering without a father. We have 4 grandchildren we've never seen. Son, you must find it in your heart to forgive us and bring us all together again. The whole big family." I looked at him hard and turned away. After taking a few steps toward the exit, I did stop and turned around and told him I would think about it. Casey was sentenced to 3 months in jail and 4 years probation. Her dopey lawyer was disbarred for conspiracy to commit fraud against justice and me personally. The Department of Child Welfare informed me that my offspring from my first marriage would be sent to foster care if my parents or I did not take them into my custody. I relayed to my parents that they could take custody of these selfish, snot-nosed brats. My father told me that one day I would have to forgive them all, and then asked me if it was so bad that he and my mother wanted to be a part of their grandchildren's lives. "We're old men now, son, and as much as we want to, we're going to have to miss more of their lives," he sighed. "With your marriage, you just gave up and moved on. What about us, Billy? Are you so heartless that you can't see that she made a mistake?" Dad kept insisting. "No," I replied with patient weariness. "There's nothing wrong with wanting to be a part of their lives. But I don't agree with you. Casey didn't make a mistake. She was a cold-blooded bitch who got what she deserved in the end. As for the kids, they happily chose that asshole and ran away from our house to join him. Remember, Dad, you told me before that there are some things in life you can't forgive. You also warned me that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You haven't forgotten what you said, have you? And then what happened, Dad? Then you just turned your back on me. And so did Mom, by the way. The reality is that Casey lied and cheated and turned the kids against me. And after all that, you still sided with her, which means you acted against me, Patty, and my family. Now you want me to act like nothing has changed. Dad, you're a man old enough to realize you made the wrong choice, and now, well, now you, like Mom, have to live with the consequences." Epilogue. What I'm about to tell you happened 10 years ago. Alas, after everything that happened then, Casey never learned her lesson. She remarried and tried to cheat on her husband the same way she did with me. Once again, nothing good came out of her double life, only the consequences of her cheating were different. Her new husband caught Casey with her next lover and killed them both. He was so vehemently unwilling to be a cuckold that he tied the lovers to the bed they were sleeping on, doused them with gasoline, threw in a lit match, and left. What was left of Casey had to be identified by dental records. Casey and I's children are grown and living up to the way they were raised. Devin and Patrick are doing their asses in jail. As for Joy, well, before anything bad could happen to her, she came to our house and begged to be part of our family. Kind-hearted Patty insisted that her dissolute mother had led Joy astray, and we should accept her and help the young girl to lead an honest and honorable life in the future. My parents did get to know Patty and me before they left this world. In their will, they left everything to my discretion, but asked me to distribute their estate fairly among all 7 of their grandchildren. As for Patty and I, the day is not far off when she and I will become parent owners of the empty family nest, and then I intend to savor every minute that my beloved wife will once again belong completely to me alone. Maybe to some of you, Billy Capps is an asshole because he didn't fight to keep his family together, or because he dropped everything and walked away. But to me, Billy, some things just aren't worth fighting for.